All right, so we have gone through this process. We found the domain, we found the derivative, we set our derivative to 0, and we solve for x. Those values are our critical points. Then we drew a test chart, and we tested our critical points. We tested the intervals on either side. We found that in this case, we have a maximum at -3, and we have a minimum at 1. Now, the next step is we have to evaluate. Where on my graph, how high, right, what's my y value, because there's a point at -3 something where we have a maximum. And we want to know what that maximum is. Now, when we get into the application, what's going to happen is we're going to be able to find out, oh, at month 2, we had a maximum profit. At month 6, we had a minimum profit. So that's where this is going, is we're looking for maximums and minimums. Okay, so last step. All we have to do now is evaluate. So I'm going to go back to my original function, right? Back to the original function. Up until this point, we've been using derivative. Did you notice I marked it? Always mark it so you know which function to use. When you're evaluating, you are using the original function. Okay? That's where you evaluate. Go back to the original. So I'm going to plug -3 back into here and find out where on my graph, what's my y value that my maximum is happening. So I'm going to go down here. So I have x cubed, so -3 cubed, plus 3 times -3 squared, minus 9 times -3, minus 11. And now I'm just going to evaluate it. -3 cubed is a -27. I need to double check my numbers. Yep. -3 squared is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. -9 times -3 is a positive 27, minus 11. So -27, positive 27 cancels out. 27 minus 11 is 16. So my maximum, so the maximum happens at -3, 16. That's the point where my maximum happens. Now let's find our minimum. Our minimum happened at 1. It went down and then it went up. So we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to erase this. And we're going to plug in positive 1. So at 1, 1, 1. Okay, so at 1, I have 1 cubed is 1. 1 squared is 1 times 3 is 3. -9 times 1 is a -9, minus 11. So we have 1 plus 3 is 4. 4 minus 9 is -5, minus 11. So my minimum happens, so the minimum is at 1, -16. So now I have found my maximum was at -316 and my minimum at 1, -16. Now I can graph it, okay? So let me erase real quick and I'll be able to graph it and finish this. So our last step is to graph. Now, you have all the information you need. You know before -3 it goes up. At -316, that's with your maximum. That's when it switches and goes down. You also know that your minimum happens at 1, -16. So you know at 1, -16, it's going to switch and go back up. So watch. Let me do a different color. See if these work. Okay, so plot your points. My maximum happens at -3, at -316. So I'm just going to make my graph, pretend. So there is my maximum, -316. My minimum happens at 1, -16. So here's my 1, here's my -16. That's my minimum. I also know that from this interval over, so from -infinity to -3, this is -3 right here, I know that my slope is increasing. So I know it's going to go up, it's going to hit my max. I don't know where it crosses my y-axis, but I know it crosses someplace. So it's going to come down, it's going to cross, it's going to hit my minimum, and then go back up. Okay? So when you graph, plot your maximum and your minimum. look at your test chart, keep your test chart handy, because you know that in this interval, my slope is increasing. It hits my max and then decreases. It hits my minimum and then increases again. So it literally, your graph is basically right here. It's going up, down, and then up again. And that shows your graph. That is first derivative and their graphs. In the next video, I'm going to go through the whole thing. I'm going to do a different problem, and we're going to walk through the whole thing.